Hello everyone and welcome to the program. I am Amarachi Ubani. This week, Diplomatic Channel explores how terrorism has impacted on Nigeria's foreign policy in a lecture rendered at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs here in Lagos. The World Health Organization has declared the coronavirus a pandemic to look at measures taken by countries to ensure more people are protected from being infected with the virus and keeping the death toll in check. Our guest is the Director, Confucius Institute at the University of Lagos, Professor Chimdi Maduagu. That's all coming up in a few minutes, but first, a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has declared a national state of disaster in the country, as well as a range of extraordinary measures to contain the COVID-19 outbreak that has infected 61 people so far. Addressing the nation in a live video television broadcast after a special cabinet meeting, he said the outbreak, first detected on March 5th, could have a significant and potentially lasting impact on a struggling economy already in recession.
We're imposing a travel ban on foreign nationals from high-risk countries such as Italy, Iran, South Korea, Spain, Germany, the United States, the United Kingdom, and China as from 18th March 2020.
Germany has also announced it will temporarily introduce border controls on its frontiers with Austria, Switzerland, France, Luxembourg, and Denmark from Monday, March 16th. The country has been facing an aggressive progression of the illness, as at Sunday there were 4,838 cases of the coronavirus in Germany, with 12 deaths, a sharp rise from 3,795 confirmed cases with 8 deaths a day earlier. Finally, India has proposed setting up an emergency fund to fight the coronavirus outbreak in South Asia, with New Delhi offering $10 million to get it going, as the number of confirmed infections in the country rises past 100. Welcome back. Terrorism, according to Professor Osita Agbu of Bayes University's Department of International Relations and Dean, Faculty of Management and Social Sciences, is a phenomenon whose concept is usually difficult to understand, a difficult concept to grapple with, you may say. He says oftentimes terrorism is linked to deterrence, the desire to attain goals by frightening those that stand in one's way. And with each decade, it's been used to describe concepts and actions that people cannot truly define. For example, Nelson Mandela, the South African president, was seen as a freedom fighter to the people of South Africa, but to the West, he was a terrorist. He said a lot more at the Maiden Memorial Lecture for late Director of Research at the NIIA, Professor Ogaba Oche, who passed away last year.
Yes, let me also recognize
They say when an academic has something to say, he puts it in a lecture. Family, friends, and former colleagues of the late Professor Ogaba Oche of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs gathered at the same venue 1 year since his demise. And since issues of national and global security were his passion, hence the topic chosen for the maiden edition of the Memorial Lecture.
Yes,
Former colleague Professor Osita Agbu led the audience, a room full of academics, former ambassadors, alumni of the secondary school he attended, as well as mentees and family members, on the theories defining terrorism.
There are certain theories that can be used to explain the mind of a terrorist and what terrorism is all about. But one of them is the frustration aggression theory for understanding phenomena like terrorism, which basically says that terrorist behavior is the response to the frustration of various political, economic, and personal needs or objectives of individuals that cannot be met. For example, let's take the Muslim fundamentalists. They have grievances against the international system, and at the same time, they are incapable of changing the international system. Because they are incapable of changing what is the international system, they resort to the use of unconventional methods. And that is how the fundamentalists become terrorists, as the case may be.
He trails the root of terrorism in Nigeria, which he says began long before the Boko Haram insurgency, which he ascribes to political and social frustrations.
Terrorism did not just start in 2002. It goes way behind, and this was very well documented with the killing of Mr. Delegiwa. So Obene in 2012 documented it, that Mr. Delegiwa was killed by a letter bomb in October 1986, and that this marked the beginning of violent killings and the use of improvised explosive devices in Nigeria. Again, if we cast our mind back, we remember that there was a group known as the Movement for the Advancement of Democracy, MAD, M-A-D, which hijacked a Nigerian Airways aircraft in October 1993, following the annulment of the Chief MKO Abiola's presidential aspirations. Again, there was a vicious bomb blast that ripped Shed 6 of the Ilorin Stadium in August of 1994. So terrorism had been there, only that it has grown bigger and bigger.
While acknowledging government efforts to combat terrorism, he then posits the implications of terrorism on Nigeria's foreign policy.
The national image of a country is very important in the perception that other countries and other actors have of your country, even though it may not be reality. But perception in international relations is everything, and that will determine the way they will treat you, and what they can allow you to be part of, and what they cannot allow you to be part of. So because of all the violence, all the crises, every day in the news, Nigeria is in the news for the bad reasons. It damages our national image.
Like others before him, he points the audience in the direction of implementation of recommendations made in the report of the 2014 National Dialogue instituted by former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, one of which included the establishment of state security outfits and state creation.
He's a soldier.
Let's turn to the coronavirus and how this has impacted international relations. European countries are quite upset with the U.S. President Donald Trump for announcing travel restrictions on countries, especially from the Schengen zone, as well as people coming from other countries where there's been reported outbreaks of the coronavirus. But President Donald Trump, like all good leaders in the world, is focused on protecting lives of citizens.
I have decided to take several strong but necessary actions to protect the health and well-being of all Americans. To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
This was the announcement that got European countries and the rest of the world riled up about America and caused Americans around the world to seek to return home before the deadline for the restriction. The U.S. president attributed the decision to failure by the European Union to take the same precautions and restrict travel from China and other hotspots. As a result, he says, a large number of new clusters of the coronavirus in the United States were seeded by travelers from Europe. Over the weekend, he extended the travel restrictions to the UK and the Republic of Ireland. The EU responded shortly after, saying it disapproves of the US decision to impose the unilateral travel ban.
The European Union disapproves of the fact that the US decision to impose a travel ban was taken unilaterally and without consultation. The European Union is taking strong action to limit the spread of the virus.
Days later, the EU battled with the issue of border restrictions on free travel to contain spread of the coronavirus. Countries such as the Czech Republic and Slovakia have tightened their borders, and Austria has introduced border checks to deny entry from Italy, which is already on lockdown.
All measures should be coordinated, operational, proportionate and effective. And this is also one thing that I will propose to the ministers.
We hope that all countries that take new measures also informs other European countries on the measures, and that if they make stricter regulation on border control, for instance, Sweden has already internal border control. I do think that they must be aware that the transportation system must work when it comes to foods and to healthcare materials and these kind of things that is important for all European countries, so that we don't make problems for each other handling the crisis.
Norway says it is shutting all its ports and airports from this week, although exemptions will be made for Norwegians returning from abroad, and planes carrying Norwegian citizens would still be able to land in Norway, and the government is negotiating with the Norwegian Air and SAS about bringing nationals home. Denmark has also shut its borders to most foreign visitors for a month. The restriction continues until April the 13th. The Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, says all tourists, all travel, all vacations and all foreigners who cannot demonstrate a credible reason to enter Denmark will be denied at the Danish border. The country has recorded 801 confirmed cases as at Saturday, with no deaths. Measures for border closure has become quite imminent as countries attempt to control rising numbers of confirmed cases, as the WHO says Europe has become the epicenter of the pandemic, with more reported cases and deaths than the rest of the world combined, apart from China. Outside of Europe, countries such as India and the UAE have announced restrictions on visas and travel, while countries such as Israel have ordered compulsory quarantine for anyone coming into the country. The number of confirmed cases outside China had increased by 7,488 on Saturday to 51,767 from Friday, while the number of confirmed cases worldwide had risen by 7,499 to 132,758, among which nearly 28,900 were reported in the European region, and deaths around the world from the virus climbed to 5,000. In the meantime, countries with high number of cases have been on partial or complete lockdown to help curb the virus's spread.